found the FEAPO organization, and I'd like to talk a bit about what FEAPO was founded to do, to talk about some of the current activities of the organization and the current membership and some of the plans we have for the future. And then I'd like to open it up and allow plenty of time for free-flowing discussion and question and answer. So let's get started. Our Center for Enterprise Architecture is a relatively new entity at Penn State. The Center for Enterprise Architecture was formally recognized by the university in January of 2011. Prior to that, we created a large corporate and government advisory group from 7 countries, over 70 organizations, to provide input into our master's program, into our undergraduate program, into our research agenda for our center, and help us create the groundwork for what's been built through our Center for Enterprise Architecture. So as this slide points out, there's 4 major initiatives that brought this large cross-section of organizations together. One is an undergraduate degree focus in enterprise architecture, which we're rolling out this coming fall. Second is an online professional master's program in enterprise architecture, which was formally ratified by the university this past April and has been filled, and we're already offering second sections of courses, et cetera, getting interest from all over the globe. We also have professional development offerings in executive education, and we have a research side of our center, which is actively conducting research with our research members. So through this work in building the center, many professional organizations have become part of our center from all over the globe. And over the years, I've been invited to sit on advisory boards and different committees within many of these professional organizations. And what I've seen through this unique vantage point, I've seen a lot of great work being done with all of these professional organizations. But I've also seen a tremendous amount of reinvention of the wheel, so to speak. So for example, one group might come out with their set of, say, competency standards, and then the other groups which weren't involved in that initiative then come out with their own set of competency standards, and it creates a lot of fragmentation and confusion with the practitioners. So whose standards or certifications or what have you are the ones we should be following. So it's a very immature discipline, to say the least, and it's also a very fragmented discipline. And one of our goals in the Center for Enterprise Architecture is to help the discipline of enterprise architecture to evolve into, quote, a real profession, on par, hopefully someday, with established professions like accounting and engineering, et cetera. Now, we have quite a bit of work to do before that day arrives. But in our opinion, one step towards this eventual goal is the attempt to bring together all of the different professional organizations that represent either the profession as a whole or different sub-disciplines within the profession, like the software architecture groups, the data architecture groups, the business architecture groups, et cetera, and see if we can collectively work together to put more of one face to this profession and jointly progress it forward. If we don't, in our opinion, and it remains a fragmented discipline, it's going to be very difficult to progress it into the stature of something like accounting or engineering, in our opinion. And our opinion is to see the programs that we have at Penn State not just be unique programs at our institution, but to see enterprise architecture become more mainstream in academia. And in North America, and I think I can comfortably say in most of the world, it is not a mainstream academic discipline. If you see it at all, it's typically a fringe program or not even a program as we have here at Penn State, but usually a series of special topics courses, et cetera. So it is far from a mainstream academic discipline. And one of the goals eventually with FEAPO is to start an academic arm of FEAPO and bring together academics from all over the globe. And I correspond regularly with my colleagues all over the globe to set some curricular standards and model curriculum and things of that nature. And since that does not exist currently, we did what we feel is the next best thing and put together a large corporate and government advisory group to help us and advise us as we develop our curriculum. Most colleges and universities are not going to go to those lengths because of the time and expense to bring together that group. So eventually we need more of a unified set of standards across the board for the profession. So that's what, in a nutshell, what motivated me to start FEAPO. So to give you just a quick history of how quickly this has evolved, I saw this need. I invited the presidents of the 6 larger professional organizations that were part of our initial advisory group to come to Penn State to talk about how they might better work together, better coordinate efforts, and communicate amongst one another to put more of one face to this profession. A, I wasn't sure if they'd come, and B, I wasn't sure how it would go once they got here. They all came, and it was a very productive discussion. I was pleasantly surprised. I think everybody in the room recognized the need, and it was almost a united we stand, divided, who knows what's going to happen to this profession. So what came out of this initial discussion was the concept of FEAPO. It's almost, in some ways, a United Nations for this space, to bring together those professional organizations that have an interest in the space to undertake activities of joint interest to progress this profession. Started as 6 organizations, is now up to about 17, so it's grown quickly. We became a formal entity in June of 2011. I'll show you a timeline here in a moment. And initially it was, I wasn't sure, honestly, how this was going. I play the role of Switzerland in the middle, if you will. I do not represent a professional organization. I represent a university. I do not vote in FEAPO. Only the duly appointed representatives of legitimate professional organizations become voting members of FEAPO. So even though I pulled these folks together, I do not vote. I do not really have a say in the future, the direction of the organization, other than through informal means. I am serving as the first president of FEAPO, and again, I play that neutral facilitation role currently. I'm not here to favor one organization over another. And I do a lot of, especially in the early days, a lot of behind-the-scenes troubleshooting between organizations. We've built a rapport between our member organizations and a trust level. It took a while to build a trust level and a rapport between these different representatives. But now I see the need for my role diminishing over time. And eventually, as I said, I'd like to start an academic arm of FEAPO and form more of a coherent international community around enterprise architecture. So the slide that's on your screen now is from our website. Talks about what is FEAPO, why this organization came together, and what we try to do. And when I explain FEAPO to people, we have something in the United States called the Underwriters Laboratory, which tests consumer products. And if you see the Underwriters Laboratory endorsement on a product, it's gone through certain testing and meets certain quality standards. And we don't have anything like that for enterprise architecture currently. There is no international accrediting body for this space. So as a result, what we see, and we see a proliferation of this in the United States, is a proliferation of what I'll call fly-by-night organizations offering certifications. Almost every other week, I'm contacted by some small consultancy or small training organization that has come up with the certification for enterprise architecture. It's actually getting to be quite humorous for me, because everybody feels they've got the certification. I'm getting a lot of feedback now. And my voice is being repeated after I say a sentence. Is everybody still on? Has anything changed?
You are
hearing the feedback.
There is.
You are hearing the feedback?
Yeah, we're getting an echo now. It just suddenly went, although it seems to have just sort of eased off again.
Just disappeared?
Yeah.
Yes, for me. Okay, all right, great. So, as I was saying, we don't have an internationally recognized accrediting body for this space, and as a result, anybody can put the term enterprise architecture on any type of training, or from a university, any type of course they want, and there's really no organization out there to say whether that's good, bad, or someplace in the middle. So as a result, as I mentioned, what you see in the U.S. is a proliferation of certifications, and many fly-by-night certifications from consultancies and small training organizations, et cetera. And in academia, if you see enterprise architecture at all, 9 times out of 10, it's repackaged software or systems architecture. And I think my colleagues hear the term and then apply it to some of their existing courses, and that's the end of it. And we need model curriculum in academia, and we need some standard setting in academia as well. And it's going to take some time to put this together. So that's one of the major motivations I have for pulling FEAPO together is to bring together an international community. I'm getting the echo again. Let's hope it ends here.
Monica, just a question.
Hello, yep.
When you had the feedback before, I moved for my microphone, so you might have feedback from somebody else then.
Oh, okay. It seems to be coming in waves a bit, but Paolo's saying he's getting lots of octave echo.
Yeah, I'm getting text messages that say lots of echo.
Okay, I don't think anybody's joined just recently, so I don't think it's specifically one person. Although we have got some fairly amazing stuff.
If everybody could turn off their microphone, that might help.
I'll just mute everybody, and can you still?
I think we got it.
Unmuted.
I think we got it. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Monica. Wonderful. Thank you, Monica.
He's still speaking? Hello?
Of creating a quote a real profession. So that was our motivation in pulling together. No, the echo is back.
Yeah,
The echo is back.
Okay, when I muted everybody, it muted you as well. So I'm going to, if I can mute everybody else, if you don't mind, if you're going to say something, can you just type it in the box and then I can unmute them.
So I can speak now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, great, thank you. So as I was saying, there is no internationally recognized accrediting body for enterprise architecture, and that was one of our motivations for putting together this group. Since there is no international accrediting body, we feel it's a needed step on to this eventual goal of creating, quote, a real profession or a more established profession. So the idea has really resonated with our center members, with corporations, with most other professional organizations, and I think once people become comfortable with the idea that FEAPO is not going to offer certifications, we're not here to offer certifications. There's plenty of certifications out there. What we'd like to do is help collectively set some joint standards for endorsement, so that someday, if we're successful, the FEAPO endorsement will mean something to the profession. So if some of the fly-by-night smaller certification offerings don't have the FEAPO endorsement, then the practitioner has some way of having some reasonable assurance of quality control and that the certification does what it says it's supposed to do. So one of our major efforts that we're just kicking off is a career pathing effort for enterprise architecture. I can't tell you how many organizations have come to me looking for some guidance on how to set up career paths for enterprise architecture and the different major subdisciplines that come underneath them. And right now, we don't have any universally accepted guidance. So what FEAPO is trying to do is develop a core career path and related competencies and roles that our members can agree to. And then over time, we would map our different member certifications, and almost all of our members have certifications of one form or another, map their certifications to where they fit in this larger career path structure. So that the profession or the person developing the professional development for somebody could look at this and say, here's a general structure. We might want to modify this or add to it or tweak it somehow for our own organization. But here's how the other major certifications offered from different groups. And we're not going to stop just with the FEAPO members. If an outside organization who, for whatever reason, hasn't joined FEAPO, wants to have their certifications be part of this, they're welcome to enter into the dialogue. Like I said, we're trying to build a community, not a closed thing that's just for certain organizations or certain groups. But the idea is then to have their certifications vetted by the other members to see if they truly fit where they say they fit and do what they say they're going to do. Then they have the FEAPO endorsement, and then I think then we have something that can be of use to the practitioners in this field. So let me continue with my slides, and then we'll open it up for dialogue. So again, I think we've hit everything on this slide. More information can be found at our website. You can see the current list of professional organizations. I mentioned I would go through a quick timeline. That initial meeting of the 6 professional organizations that I mentioned occurred in 2010, so it wasn't that long ago. Our operating charter and bylaws were adopted in June of 2011, and we formed a couple initial working groups to help get some of our initial activities off the ground. And we had a major summit at our university this past May, and we had some of the analyst firms, Forrester and Cutter and a corporate executive board were in attendance. Gartner is coming to the next one. That their representative couldn't make it. But we have the analyst firms functioning almost as a devil's advocate. Things like this have been attempted in other professions as we were exploring this model, and they've always failed. And the reason they failed, in every case, it was always one of the larger organizations approaching the smaller, and they were always met with suspicion, et cetera, and it never went very far. This is the first time, at least as far as we've been able to find, where we've had a neutral party or university in the middle bringing everybody together. And so far, it's been very successful. You know, we still have a ways to go before we're going to make the impact that we all envision on the profession. But I think we've gotten past some of the rough points. And for me, this summit this past May was a major make-or-break event, because we had to come together and come to some consensus on a perspective document that we're developing. So we're developing a perspective document on what EA is and what value it brings to an organization. And there's been a lot of, obviously discussion back and forth on what should be in this document. But it'll be the first time that 17-odd professional organizations have come together to jointly ratify something like this. Up until now, one organization comes out with theirs, another organization comes out with theirs, and they shoot back and forth, and we really don't get anywhere. So in this way, we're coming out with a joint perspective document that will go into Wikipedia. It's going to be published in Architecture and Governance magazine, and we're taking over the editorship for EA and Wikipedia as well. So it's a first step, and this May meeting, as I said, for me was kind of a make-or-break event. I wasn't sure whether it's impossible to get everybody to agree. So when a majority feels one way, will the minority take their marbles and go home, so to speak? And that didn't happen. We had very respectful discussions, and we had to vote on certain items, and whether in the paper or out of the paper. And those that held the minority position accepted it. They understood the process. We tried to have a very transparent process. And they accepted the decisions of the larger group and continued to be engaged. So I was very pleased to see that it happened that way, and I'm very encouraged for the future. We have some very good people involved in FEAPO. Here's the current list of members, and as I said, the individuals that represent these organizations are just spectacular. They're here for the right reasons, and just a wonderful group of people to work with. Some of the goals for the next year. We've had inquiries from other organizations. I just got off the phone with the president of IASA. Some of you may be familiar with IASA, and he's inquiring about FEAPO and what that would mean. Honestly, with some organizations, the Open Group, for example, and IASA, the Open Group was involved initially, and then some within the Open Group didn't feel comfortable necessarily sharing everything that they were doing with the larger community. And honestly, there's no commitment one way or the other to share anything that you're doing. You can share as much or as little of your operations. Hopefully in time we feel comfortable enough to share more and more. But I think in some cases some organizations are having a little trouble being in the choir rather than the choir director, so to speak. And that's something I think we all need to get comfortable with. This truly is a voice in the choir situation, which means not everything is going to go exactly like a particular individual organization wants it to go. And I think if we're all comfortable with that and have a very transparent process, then things go much smoother. And I think by and large we're getting that ironed out with our member organizations. and some new organizations that are inquiring or I think trying to get a feel for how that new role is going to work with their organization and with their membership. Typically, once an organization gets involved with FEAPO, they're very encouraged with the level of discussion, the respectful nature of the discussion. I think we've all been in EA conferences and discussions where it gets into almost a shouting match, and people leave in a tizzy, and very little gets resolved. We don't. I don't allow those type of discussions since I'm the facilitator, and we don't have that type of individual representing the organizations by and large in FEAPO. We have people that are there for the right reasons, and we've had very productive and respectful discussions to date. So some of the things that we have planned. Continue to build our membership. We are also working with MITRE to relaunch their Enterprise Architecture Body of Knowledge project. Some of you might be familiar with the original EA BOK that MITRE developed back around, I believe it was 2004. Not much has been done with that effort since then. They have renewed funding to revamp and re-release this BOK, and they've asked FEAPO to play a major consultation and leadership role. We represent such a large cross-section of the profession. So we've been working with them and are in the process of working toward a launch of the BOK later this spring. It's been unofficially launched already, but there'll be more of a media event late fall, early spring. As I mentioned, we're assuming the editorship of Wikipedia and working on a perspective paper on EA that will eventually be represented in Wikipedia. We had a summit, as I mentioned, this past May. We didn't get through everything that we wanted to accomplish in this summit, to be honest. We got the perspective paper set of revisions finished. We didn't get to kick off the career path work because the perspective paper took longer than expected. So we're scheduling a special meeting, a follow-up to the summit on August 21st and 22nd in Chicago, hosted by IIBA, to finish the work that we didn't get a chance to finish this past May. After that, we'll be forming working groups, especially around the different branches of the career path effort that I mentioned. We are also going to be launching an affiliate membership level. We've had many inquiries from non-professional organizations, corporations, government entities, universities as well, about getting involved with FEAPO. And up until now, we honestly haven't been ready to onboard any other type of member. It's been limited just to and I'm going to say legitimate professional organizations. We spent a lot of time crafting what a legitimate professional organization looks like in our bylaws and membership criteria, because especially in the U.S., I can't comment as much in the UK and Europe, but we have many what I'll call charlatan organizations that present themselves as a professional organization, but they're really fronts for training and consulting companies. And we wanted to make sure that those people did not get a voting membership in FEAPO because they don't represent an active, legitimate membership. They represent, their own business interests. So those people and other corporations that are really functioning in a business entity, we want to hear their voices, but in a non-voting capacity. So later this fall, we're going to be launching an affiliate membership level for corporations and other non-professional organizations that want to get involved in some of our efforts, have their voices heard, but as I said, in a non-voting capacity. And we spent a lot of time, as I said, trying to ensure that only representatives of legitimate professional organizations qualify for voting membership. And then we have a very robust 5-year roadmap of activities that continually gets tweaked, and to continue with our robust roadmap of activities that we feel will help EA in time elevate into, as I said, a real profession. One of our working groups, our taxonomy working group, put together this draft of different things that may need to be put in place for quote, a real profession, or for evolution into a real profession. And as I said, we have some of these things underway. Other things will be developed over time. And this chart itself will probably get tweaked over time as different input and is given on what we should be doing as an organization. So that's why we're inviting any individuals, any professional organizations that aren't a member of FEAPO that are interested in working with us to elevate this profession to join the conversation. We continue to inform even organizations that aren't sure if they're ready for membership. We keep them informed. We invite them to activities, and that's what we did with IASA, and now they're considering membership because they see we've got a pretty decent critical mass of organizations, and we've overcome some of the rough points. Many people told me early on, you'll never get these people together. And then we got them together, and then they said, well, you'll never keep them together. They stayed together. Then the next comment was, well, you'll never get them to do anything productive. And now we're starting to do some very productive things. And as I said, we've got a wonderful set of individuals, and I'm very fortunate to be associated with these folks. Okay, now I'd like to end my formal comments about what FEAPO is, why we started this initiative, and where we hope to go with the organization, and open it up for your questions and comments.
Unmuted.
So
hopefully we'll get an echo.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you very much, Brian. I've unmuted everybody. If people are able to mute themselves, unless they sort of want to ask a question, it might work.
Monica, I had a few questions emailed to me. I might be able to start with those.
Okay.
If that's okay. That's okay.
Shall I? Unfortunately, shall I mute people?
If you don't mind, then we wouldn't have the echo, and perhaps these questions may. If one person had this set of questions, I assume others might. So maybe I'll start with those, and then we can figure out how we're going to deal with the echo.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. One question that I was asked, what does success look like for FEAPO? How do you measure that? That's an excellent question. If, say, 3 years from now, the FEAPO endorsement is something that means something to the profession, and we have this career path structure that's been ratified with related competencies and role descriptions for all the different branches of this career path structure, and we have some type of accrediting mechanism in place, and we're for the career path structure, and are working on doing that for academia, and the endorsement of the organization means something, then for me that would be success. And if say in I think 3 years would be reasonable, 3 to 4 years to have that put in place, then I'd say we're successful. And if we have even more organizations join than we have today, that would be better yet. Another question that was emailed: how does the BCS certification scheme and SOFIA framework fit into FEAPO? That's, again, another good question, and a question I get from many organizations. How does our certification scheme fit into FEAPO? And the answer would be, FEAPO is not going to offer certifications. That's not the goal of this organization. So it doesn't compete in any way. This career path framework that we're developing for the BCS certifications and all the other member organization certifications, they play a role, obviously, in this broader career path. And when we envision enterprise architecture, we're not talking just about IT architecture. We're talking about EA pertaining to the whole enterprise. So this is a very broad profession with many different branches. So all of the legitimate certifications, like the BCS certifications, and our other member certifications that were developed by a broad membership, they all play a role in here. And we need these organizations to be part of the conversation, so that when we're crafting competency sets and role descriptions, et cetera, that they are well represented, and that this career path structure does mesh with the certifications of our members, and you can clearly see where your part of this broader career path structure lies. But if you're not part of the conversation, we do the best we can with the knowledge that we have, but there's no substitute for actually having somebody there that represents a particular professional organization or certification progression. So that would be why we are actively encouraging any and all professional organizations to become part of our conversation. Those are the questions that were emailed to me earlier. So I'd like to open it up to other questions and comments as well, and hopefully we can, perhaps if, Monica, would it work if you muted everybody but the person asking the question and we went back and forth? Would that help eliminate the echo, if that's possible?
That's what I'm attempting to do at the moment. It doesn't seem to echo when I'm on there. I've sent out a chat question to anyone asking if they want to add to the discussion. I'm
believe, well, I'm sorry, I was going to say, I don't believe I can see your chat window while I have control.
Shall I change the, let me change the presenter back to me. And
if you want.
People might get the screen, but I have been able to chat with people. Are you still there, Brian?
I am still here.
Okay.
If you'd like to relay.
I'm gonna.
Go. Okay. I actually can see.
Yeah, I can see that. I've got your slides here. I'm gonna unmute. I think. Oh, hello. Hello. Has anybody got a specific question?
If you'd like to chat.
Yes. Peter Rob. Brian, my question would be, how would you advise UK practitioners who might want to get involved to do that?
Okay, there are currently, and this fall there'll be additional ways to get involved. Currently, you can only get involved as a representative of one of the member professional organizations, and so you would come through one of the professional organizations, and you would be one of the so for example, the Center for the Advancement of the Enterprise Architecture Profession, they have about 10 people involved in different working groups. So there's no limit on the number of people that can be involved, but currently it has to come through one of the member organizations. This is going to change in the fall when we launch this affiliate membership level, where any organization, corporation, government entity, what have you, can apply for affiliate membership. And then you would come in through, so for example, your employer, if you work for, say, British Petroleum, for example, British Petroleum would apply for affiliate membership, and then whomever from British Petroleum could become involved in FEAPO working groups and activities. So it's a organizational membership, and we want to keep it at that. And what we're trying to do, and we're trying to be very conscious about this, we don't want to compete in any way with our member organizations. So you all have individual memberships by and large, if you have company memberships. And we don't want to conflict with any of that, and we're trying to work out a model that works for all of our members. So organizations and corporations can join at the affiliate level, but not individuals. Because, like I said, we don't want to conflict in any way with your individual membership models that many of our organizations have. Another question I see in the chat window, where does a TOGAF 9 certified professional stand in the new framework? That's a good question. I don't think we're mature enough to answer that yet. Hopefully, and the open group, members of the open group and AEA, the Association of Enterprise Architecture Professionals, I'm on the editorial board for the Journal of Enterprise Architecture as well. They're involved unofficially. That we actually had some of their representatives attend the meeting, the summit meeting in May, and I think eventually it just takes time with larger organizations for their leadership to feel comfortable with this idea sometimes. And this is a marathon, not a race. So I think eventually some of these larger organizations are becoming more comfortable with this concept, and they're sending unofficial advisor or representatives to hear what's going on in the room and see what we're doing. And eventually, I believe they're going to become full-fledged members. So when we develop this framework, the TOGAF 9 and other certifications, hopefully they'll have the right people at the table so that we're getting all the different competencies and skills and roles that need to be accounted for into the conversation, and that it'll be a natural when it comes out. It'll be natural. Okay, this part of the competency framework that clearly maps to the TOGAF certifications or any other certifications, so we can clearly show somebody coming up with a professional development plan, here's how the universe of certifications, here's how they map to this career path structure and where different certifications come to play. And also where some of these fly-by-night smaller certifications that really aren't credible, they really don't, you know, we're having a, as I said, kind of an endorsement process here, and some of the smaller certifications don't meet our, or don't really do what they say they're going to do. They don't really map to part of our career path structure, and they're not really legitimate certifications. So we hope to be able to separate the legitimate, you know, well-structured certifications from some of these you know, fly-by-night organizations. And in the U.S., we have quite, they seem to be proliferating, especially in the last couple of years. Any other questions?
Alex, that was your question. Have you got anything more that you want to add to that? Alex?
Feel free to do it in the chat window as well if you'd rather.
Okay. No, not getting a. I've got a question, Brian, and it's really around the, you know, in terms of this sort of building blocks of the EA profession, around particularly around sort of journals and publications, you know, as essentially a sort of characteristic of a professional organisation. And I work for a research organisation, so you know my brain's in that kind of space around sort of publications and journals. What are there any, you know, sort of developments around that? I mean, is there likely to be a bespoke one that comes out of this, or is there likely to be a sort of, you know, a recommended set of sort of journals and publications to support this?
Perhaps. I'll tell you where we are with this. So there's, I'm going to give you a long-winded answer. Right now, I'd say the Journal of Enterprise Architecture and Architecture and Governance magazine are really the two primary ones that focus at least a majority of their time on enterprise architecture. And that's not enough to, so coming from a major research institution like Penn State, the problem that I see as an academic, I'll put on my academic hat for a second, is that there's no real international research community, academic research community in enterprise architecture. We have individuals at different universities from around the globe that are interested in this space, but there's no cohesive academic research community. And this has been an ongoing discussion for years. And I don't want to belabor this point too much, but what we came down to, we decided we needed to partner with an established academic research community and try to become part of their conferences and journals, etc. And what this came down to, we had a split. It was almost 50-50 between faculty that came from an engineering or computer science college and faculty that came from College of Business. So obviously the people in the College of Business want business-oriented conferences and outlets because that's what their peers value. And the people on the technical side obviously want technical conferences and more technically oriented journals. And really EA is something squarely in the middle. And there is nothing squarely in the middle in academia. You have to take a stance one side or the other. And that's not really the right, what we determined, that's not really the right thing to do, because then you alienate the people on the other side of the equation. And nobody wants to do that. So then the next step in the discussion, could we create maybe a hybrid conference where we have a reputable international academic business association partner with, say, ACM or IEEE Computer Society or somebody that's traditionally more on the technical side. And then what we ran into when we broached this idea with some of the organizations, it got down to revenue. How are we going to divide it? We've never done anything like this. How are we going to divide up the revenue for conferences and journals? And it died a death of 1,000 questions. And we never really got it off the ground. We're not giving up. I'm hoping maybe if we can bring this group together through FEAPO, and we've talked with, you actually have a good start at this in Europe through the TEAR organization, the Trends in Enterprise Architecture Research Symposium. Now they're doing their conference this year for the first time in North America, and they're partnering up with IEEE Computer Society. to share their resources. So I understand why they partnered, but when we do that, though, then we also alienate the people on the business side of the equation. So they've got a good start at a community, and I've been actively talking with these people about how we strengthen this community and make it more of a strong academic research community, but we've got a ways to go. The Journal for Enterprise Architecture is going through identity issues. I'm on their editorial board, and they are revamping their focus. They tried to be all things to all people, and in my opinion, didn't really satisfy anybody. They didn't satisfy the practitioner community that well, and they weren't seen as a serious academic journal by the academic community. So they've decided to refocus their efforts on the practitioner community, which I think is smart for them to do. And then we've talked about maybe in time creating a sister academic journal just focused on the academic community, but that's going to take some time. That's probably at least a few years down the road. So there's a lot of work to be done in this space to make it a real academically recognized profession as well as a real practitioner recognized profession and consistent through organizations. What we see in many organizations in the U.S., if they've developed career paths, they have often developed internal certifications around EA. And they've done the best they can do given what they have to work with. But these certifications don't port to other organizations. We've seen cases where, say you have a gold level enterprise architect at Oracle, how does that relate to a level 3 architect at Raytheon, for example? They don't relate. And as a result, we've seen cases where an architect in one organization wasn't qualified to be an architect in another. So we really need to get past all of this and have more common understanding and common standards that apply to all organizations, and that's what we're trying to work with, or work towards, rather. Now, another thing I'll mention, the Career Path project that I alluded to earlier. As a prelude to this, we asked all of our members, and I've asked our center members, and beating the bushes, so to speak, to get established career paths that government entities and corporations are using around enterprise architecture. So after all this effort, I got 10, just 10. And we had signed NDAs, et cetera, to be able to use these. And what I found, which probably isn't a great surprise to you folks, or maybe it will be, is that these career paths, if they exist at all, are very immature, more immature than even I thought. For example, under business architecture, I couldn't find one organization that could give me a documented, codified career path around business architecture. Everybody has an opinion on what it should look like. But our vetting point was, it has to be codified in an organization. They have to have gone through their internal debates, et cetera, to the point where there's a documented career path for this particular profession. If it's not documented and used in a corporation or government entity, then it's not going to be of use in our study. Because many of our members, frankly, have their certification paths. And then my next question is, can you show me one of your members that have adopted this or adapted it somehow into a career path within their profession? And for the business architecture folks, we have two major business architecture groups. I couldn't get one career path that an organization has codified and uses internally. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just shows you how immature parts of this profession really are and how much work that really needs to be done.
Okay, no, that's great. I mean, that's a sort of what I expected.
An answer to your question.
Yeah, no, Stephen's got a question for you. You're, I think, on audio, are you, Stephen? Are you able to speak?
U.S. government context. Are there any implications with U.S. government mandating FEAPO accredit? Not near term. We'll have to see. Honestly, we'll have to see where this goes. Scott Bernard, chief architect for the federal government, is very aware of our efforts and very supportive. I knew Scott personally, and he usually sends a representative to at least keep tabs on what we're doing. And on the Department of Defense side, Walt Ocon, who's the keeper of the DODAF, is also very aware of what we're doing and supportive. Will we get to the point that where the federal side or the Department of Defense mandates FEAPO accreditation? That would be a major, in my opinion, a major success point if we get there. I think we've got a lot of work to do. That's at least, I'm just going to make up a number here, 5-7 years or more off. I think we've got a lot of work to do to have this be, to build this body and have the endorsement or accreditation mean something to the profession. Could that happen? Sure, it could happen, but I think it's going to take some time. And we're like I said, we invite these people to send their representatives, and we try to keep interested parties informed on what we're doing. But right now, there's no immediate plans for anything like that. I think we're far too immature to even suggest something like that at this point in time.
That's right. I had one other question, Brian, on the relationship between FEAPO and the European ECF framework. Have you done any?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I caught the first part, but I didn't catch the last part of your question.
Yeah, similarly to the SFIA context, Brian. I know Sophia is talking to people in Brussels about the European competency framework standard and developments. Is there any links between FEAPO and the ECF at the European level?
Not yet. We have the Netherlands Architecture Society, and I communicate with at least a dozen different colleagues at universities in Europe. We'd love to establish that type of contact if it makes sense for both organizations and is of interest. So not currently, but we're fielding inquiries from. I just had inquiries from Korea and Japan as well. We have a strong supporter in the United Nations, a gentleman named Stephen Abaraki from the Canadian Information Processing Group, who does a lot of work with the UN. And he's been a big advocate for FEAPO and speaks about FEAPO at different UN events. So as a result, we're starting to get more inquiries from various parts of the globe. And that's really what we need this organization to become. So if there's interest from other groups that perhaps we're unaware of or don't have contacts within Europe or the UK, please send them our way. And Stephen's just been such an advocate. He's invited me to speak at a number of UN events already, and he's just been a tremendous resource for the organization.
That's right. Can I just ask one more final question, Brian, please?
Sure.
Can you just elaborate a little bit more on the forthcoming roadmap that you mentioned? What's the roadmap look like in terms of key deliverables and expectations going forward?
Yeah, I don't have the current copy in front of me, but I can give you at a high level what we're trying to do with the roadmap. So as with many organizations, it helps to have at least a high-level roadmap of activities and what you hope to accomplish in year 1, year 2, year 3. And obviously it gets changed as you know, maybe some projects that were of priority at one point in time become less of a priority over time, or in our case, some projects are taking a bit longer than we had anticipated, so we need to modify the roadmap. And as new organizations join the effort as well, we need to revisit the roadmap to get the larger view and the larger consensus reflected into the roadmap. But it's kind of a high-level vision of where we want to go over the next couple years. I'd be happy to, if any of you are interested, I'd be happy to get the current version. We have a roadmap working group that's the keeper of the roadmap. I'll get the current version that they've developed and send to you. I don't have it in slides or have it readily available, but I'd look at it as I look at it personally as kind of a starting point for our discussion. I don't see it as this is what has to happen in progression. It has to occur in, because it's changed as more organizations have gotten involved. Different things have gotten pushed up in the timeline, and other things have gotten pushed back to subsequent years. But as I said, I'd be happy to share what the current version of it with anybody that's interested.
Okay. There's a question from Alex. I don't know. I don't think the sound's working there, but and I don't know if you can see it on the screen, Brian. It's how are you planning to publish career paths when there are many definitions in regard to what architecture is?
Okay. All right. What we're this has been kind of an internal debate, as you might imagine, with all the organizations that we have in place. So rather than get down into the weeds of debating nuances of definitions as we typically do when we start these things, and then we typically never get past the debate on definitions, we're trying to, in general, what are the major things that we try to accomplish with enterprise architecture? So let's not get mired down into what is an enterprise, what is architecture. And believe me, we have people that want to do that in our organization, but I think many of us have been through enough of these exercises to know that if we get bogged down in the minutia, we never get to discuss the big picture. And we're trying to discuss the big, so for example, and we keep having to pull ourselves back periodically to keep this perspective. When we do this perspective paper, what we learned as we were going through this project, or this process, almost every organization has some type of definitional document on what enterprise architecture is. But not one of them have ever vetted that document outside of the profession. So the big thing that we hear is that, the people in the other parts of the organization don't understand what we do. They don't understand the value that we can bring. They don't see us as a strategic resource. They see us as, an IT function, and we're not brought in when we should be into strategic planning, et cetera. So I hear this over and over again. And when we were looking at how these documents were developed in the past, it was always by EA people, and they had other EA people from within their organizations read the document, and they thought, oh, this looks great. They pat each other on the back. Yet what happens when the layperson goes out and Googles enterprise architecture, so I've had this happen at my university when we were first putting our program together, oftentimes they leave more confused than when they started, because there's so much stuff out, or articles, definitions, et cetera, that have been written by EA people but never vetted by the layperson to see if they make sense. So what we're doing here, and I was surprised, not one group, not one, had done it that way. It was always developed internally and read by other EA people. So for this particular document, we have an external board of people that represent different parts of the functional business areas, but by and large have never heard of EA or aren't really sure what it is. So we're trying to make sure that what we write is meaningful to them and easily understood. Because otherwise, we're contributing to the problem. We're not helping to solve it. And to my knowledge, this is the first time that this approach has been taken. So what we're trying to do is get something that, the average person in accounting or marketing isn't debating what the definition of architecture or the definition of enterprise. They're not debating those things. They want to know how can you help them do what they do better and contribute value to the organization. That's the perspective we're taking with this document. What EA can bring to the organization, how you can contribute value, why it is or could be a strategic resource for an organization, and something that makes sense to the layperson. And as I said, and we had a few lay people come to our meeting, and I had some students, and they said, we're not going to, we're not thinking, well, are they using the term enterprise correct or the term architecture correct? We're not thinking about that when we read this stuff. We're thinking about, what is it and why should I care? And that's how we're starting this conversation, because otherwise, and I've been through enough of these, we get bogged down and don't get past the semantics. And you might not agree with that perspective, but so far it's been working, and what we're trying to do, as I said, is appeal to the layperson in the organization so they understand what it is we can bring to the table.
Okay, I think that's that. Thanks very much for that. Has anybody else got any questions at all? I'm not seeing anything coming up on the screen at all. I'll unmute people. We'll probably go into echo land. Echo land.
Oh, yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Is there anybody? Any more questions?
I hear somebody typing, so maybe we'll give it a few minutes and see if another question comes through. Is there a link for FEAPO? Would you mind muting everybody so I can answer this, please?
I will, yeah. just need to, oh, hang on.
You see our timeline. Are we okay? Are we okay? No. Okay. We've grown so rapidly. Well, one area that we've been suffering on, quite frankly, is communications, internal as well as external. And we have a new vice president for communications who's actually a senior enterprise architect with Hewlett-Packard. And he's going to set up a LinkedIn group and a number of other things. So that's one thing. Because of the speed at which we've grown, we haven't been very good at currently. And our website, in my opinion, needs quite a bit of work. Much of what we're doing and the different projects that I've outlined aren't reflected well, if at all, on our website. And that's just been a function of the amount of activity and work that we've been through so far. And hopefully this new Vice President of Communications and his volunteers that he's assembling are going to help us solve some of these communication issues. So shortly there will be.
Great. Well, I think we're...
I hear more typing. I'm willing to stay on later if it...
Is there anything else coming through?
I can hear typing, so I'm willing to...
The final one from Stephen.
Okay. You know what, Stephen? Please get into FEAPO. We're trying to figure this out, and I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. Most business people don't get EA or understand what value it can be, and one question I keep asking people, I speak at a lot of the EA conferences and events, and it's always me speaking to, IT and primarily IT people and people in enterprise architecture. It's never, or rarely ever, people on the business side of the equation, the strategic planning people and others. So my question is, where do they go for their professional development? Where are their conferences? And I can't really get a straight answer on this from anybody, at least not in the U.S. We should be going there, presenting at their conferences, building bridges with those people, getting some of their organizations involved with FEAPO, if we're going to, help EA progress beyond a primarily IT discipline, which is, as I said, one of our goals within FEAPO. But aside from the business architecture groups that we have currently involved with FEAPO, I'm not finding the right groups to speak at and get plugged in with FEAPO, because if they don't care or don't understand us, we're never going to go through this evolution that we'd all like to see occur. And that's a big. I just had a conversation with some Gartner people the other day about this, and I got a lot of silence on the phone as well. They said, "You're right, but we're not sure where to go or how to expand this conversation either." So we're looking for ideas, honestly, and that's a big nut that nobody, to my knowledge, has yet to crack. So excellent question, and yeah, I suppose yes. Okay, very, very good. That's exactly what we're trying to do with this perspective paper. So it doesn't matter if we agree on the term architecture or not. If you agree with my version of the term and I agree with yours, what really matters at the end of the day with this paper is if your business people, the people outside of EA, get what we're communicating in this paper, the value that it can bring to the organization, and why it really is a strategic function, or could be a strategic function for your organization. And that's what we're trying to do with this paper. And any of you, and I think BCS saw a very early version, and any of you that were involved with the earliest version of this paper, I'm going to publicly apologize. We sent it out way too early. Initially, what we did in this process, we collected input from all of our member organizations and did kind of an input dump of everything we were getting and sent that out to everybody. And that was the wrong thing to do in hindsight. Many people thought it was more refined than it was. They got upset because, of something that was in there, what have you. It's gone through many, many iterations since then. And now we have a new version that we're going to be discussing in August, which nobody in your organization has seen yet. Actually, only a few people in FEAPO. We took all the feedback from the last meeting, feedback we're getting from this advisory group of non-EA people, synthesizing it together, and now we're getting much closer. So the process that we've outlined, we're going to discuss any other needed tweaks, get in the August meeting, get the paper to the point that the representatives feel good with it. Then they will take it back to their home organizations, hopefully shortly after the August meeting, for approval within their home organizations, and then we're shooting to have it published in Architecture and Governance magazine in October. And if we miss that issue, then we'll do the next one. But that's exactly what we're trying to do here. What's the business value of EA? What can it bring to your organization? And that's hopefully this perspective paper will bring that to. And if you look at what's in Wikipedia now, it doesn't get that across. So hopefully, if we do this right, Wikipedia will mean something to the lay people. Just a quick story. When we first started this enterprise architecture program at Penn State, our marketing people for our online programs went out and tried to Google enterprise architecture. And I knew what would happen. I told them, you're not going to get an accurate picture of what this is by going out and Googling things. You need to talk to the corporations and government entities that are involved in our organization. But of course, they knew best. They didn't call one person on our list. They went out and Googled it and came back and said, well, we're not really sure we get what this is, but it seems that it's just another name for software engineering. And we already have a professional master's in software engineering, so we're not going to approve this, and it's not going to go forward. And I could have reached across the table and grabbed some throats. Luckily, to make a long story short, my dean saw all the corporations. We had a number of meetings here at Penn State. He, for the most part, got what it was and essentially told our world campus, stay out of our way. We're going to do this. We don't need your support. Just don't become an impediment. And now, fast forward, people are beating down the doors to get into our program. It's generating money hand over fist, and now they talk like they came up with the idea, and they're this is the best thing that's ever happened to the world campus. But initially, if they were just going on what they Googled, we would have never got off the ground. So we do have a perception and communication problem that hopefully we can collectively solve and work on over time.
Okay, I think we've probably got to the end of our time. I'm sure we could end up talking sort of all night here, and I'm sorry to cut things short, but I think we've probably reached a good point to finish. And all it takes is to thank you very much, Brian, for a very informative presentation and a debate, and I hope everybody managed to get their questions in. If they didn't, then please send them through subsequently. We'll be publishing the recording of this and a PDF version of the slides, and also, keeping in contact around sort of what's happening and the various papers and publications and events. So without further ado, I think that's probably the meeting closed, unless anybody's got any final words that they need to say.
Unmuted.
And I'd be happy to answer any subsequent questions that people might have. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.